that, I'd like to call now on the first intervention. This is from the CEO of the International Hockey Federation, Kelly Fairweather. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Dear delegates, thank you for the opportunity. I can assure you I'll be less than 3 minutes to make up for some of those that seem unable to stick to that timing. Like many of us, we have been impressed by the quality of work done in the process of the code review, and in particular yesterday we were very, very impressed with the presentation by Rich Young and Ulrich Haast, which highlight not only the changes but the tremendous progress that has been made over the last few years. The FIH support these changes, which will serve to assist all our work in the coming years. We would like in particular to highlight Theme 5 and Article 5.4.1 and 2, and the use of the risk assessment and the development of a technical document as the basis for the TDP. We are aware that behind these changes lie a lot of work, but we're committed to working with WADA in 2014 on this very, very important document. We believe that this process of the development of the technical document will lead to good discussion, dialogue, debate, but hopefully a more robust, targeted and cost-effective program for all sports. We know that is not what is said here, but that is important, but what we do over the coming years. And being here with our colleagues and the stakeholders has renewed our commitment to protecting the rights of the clean athletes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and terrific example for the first intervention in time terms. And thank you for what you said also. Next is multiple champion in swimming representing Zimbabwe and a member of the International Committee, Olympic Committee Athlete Commission, Kirsty Coventry. Thank you, Kirsty.
Hello, thank you, Mr. President. As a current athlete, I'm excited by what WADA are doing, and I'm here to support them in our fight against doping. My name is Kirsty Coventry. I'm a swimmer from Zimbabwe, and I've won 7 individual Olympic medals, 2 gold, 4 silver, and a bronze. I am a new member of the IOC Athletes Commission, elected by my fellow athletes in London 2012, and I am also a member of the WADA Foundation Board. Becoming an Olympic champion was a dream of mine since I was 9 years old. I have been fortunate from a young age. My parents instilled in me basic morals and values. For instance, knowing what is right and wrong. They also taught me that sport is the purest form of competition, as it allows for the opportunity for all who take part to be equal. By supporting WADA, I'm helping my fellow athletes compete on a clean, therefore fair and equal playing field. We all know the importance of an athlete's entourage. I was one of the lucky athletes whose parents, coaches, and doctors believed in my natural talent and passion for my sport. My entourage also realized the power and influence they have over me and never took advantage of this privilege I gave them. I've heard the unfortunate stories of my fellow sportsmen and women who have rightfully trusted their entourage and have been led down a dark path. I believe if we keep moving forward with firm sanctions and accountability on the entourage, we will be making the anti-doping movement stronger. I'm in training to compete at my 5th Olympic Games in Rio 2016. It is my human right to know and to do everything in my power to ensure that I am competing against clean athletes. I take great pride in saying that I am a successful athlete, but more so a clean, successful athlete. The last thing I feel like dealing with in the early morning or at the end of a long day is having an unfamiliar face asking to come into my home so I can provide them with a urine sample. But for the short amount of time it takes and the realization of, hey, it's actually not that bad, I will do it again because it's a vital part of our fight against doping and deterring cheats. I applaud the various stakeholders here today showing up in their support of clean sport. We can make sure the fight in doping continues. But in order to win, we need to do it together, and I look forward to working with you all to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. Our next intervention will come from the Secretary General of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Matthew Raab.
Thank you, President. The mission of the Court of Arbitration for Sport is to ensure the proper interpretation and application of the World Anti-Doping Code when it is requested to settle doping-related disputes. As a consequence, the CAS as an institution does not have to express any particular opinion concerning the amendments proposed in the revised code, which may be applied by CAS panels in future arbitration procedures. Having said that, we considered appropriate to point out some situations where potential conflict of rules could arise between the World Anti-Doping Code and the CAS regulations. These comments, which are rather technical, have been previously addressed to WADA. Today I will focus on the issues where the CAS jurisprudence will have a role to play in the application of the revised code. The new code may not be shorter than the current one, but is clearer, and this is more important. Furthermore, the 2015 code has taken into consideration the existing CAS jurisprudence as well as new circumstances taken from the practice and that have not been previously envisaged. This is the benefit of having in the drafting committee two legal experts such as Rich Young and Ulrich Haas, who have a large experience of CAS arbitration. We note that the principle of strict liability, recognized by the CAS and also by the Swiss Federal Tribunal, remains applicable to establish an anti-doping rule violation, and that the maximum 4-year ban is not a new sanction, but that it already exists in the current Article 10.6 of the Code. This article provides for aggravating circumstances, and since its implementation, it is considered as an exception to the standard 2-year ban. The CAS already had the opportunity to apply this Article 10.6 without being challenged before state courts. Now the 4-year ban will appear in the first position in the list of sanctions and will include a presumption of intentional doping for non-specified substances. As it is now, the sanctions are not automatic and must be proportionate to the offense committed. The proportionality issue has been carefully examined in the legal opinion delivered by Judge Costa, and it is a principle which will continue to be applied by the CAS. Furthermore, it is likely that the notion of intentional or non-intentional doping involving subjective elements will also be subject to interpretation and will be discussed before CAS panels in 2015 onwards. On our side, it is the mission of CAS to continue to provide an efficient dispute resolution mechanism, and the International Council of Arbitration for Sport has taken measures to ensure a speedy resolution of disputes despite heavier and more complex cases, and to maintain a high level of expertise within CAS panels. Finally, on behalf of CAS, I would like to congratulate John Fahey for his presidency during the last 6 years and for his service to the Olympic movement. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. On behalf now of the Commonwealth Games Federation, we will have an intervention from the Honorary Medical Advisor, Dr. Mani Jagathasan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm here together with Mr. Sharat Rao, our legal advisor as well. We form the core group looking after the anti-doping activities of the Commonwealth Games Federation. First of all, I'd like to thank WADA and the organizers for this opportunity to make this intervention, and to our South African colleagues for their excellent organization and great hospitality that we've enjoyed for the last couple of days. We fully support the revised code, but what will be interesting is in the implementation. There'll be a lot of challenges, and this is where, as a responsible organization, we will do our part to ensure that whatever is expected of us will be delivered. We are an organization which comes under the category of event owner organizer, and we organize the quadrennial Commonwealth Games since the 30s, and we are running into the 20th series in Glasgow next year. We will be organizing the 5th edition of our Commonwealth Youth Games, which is a bit more than the Youth Olympic Games itself. We have membership of 72 countries, and we have introduced doping control activities in our games since the 70s, well before the advent of WADA. But since the advent of WADA, we have been fully WADA compliant, and we have worked very closely with WADA, including welcoming the independent observer teams as well as outreach. And we have been very collaborative with these efforts. Now, in the current concept, with the new code and with the fashionable mantra now of this intelligent testing, especially at games time, we hope to work with our stakeholders, the NADOs as well as the international federations, to provide, hopefully, a seamless continuum of opportunities for a top-level athlete to be tested from beginning of training to taking part in the Commonwealth Games. And although all of this code will be established or made valid only from 2015, we have an opportunity next year during our 20th Commonwealth Games to pilot test this together with the collaboration of WADA, which can play an excellent catalytic as well as convening role in helping us work this together with our stakeholders. Now, with that, I would just like to say that we look forward to continuing our other roles in the educational area, as well as in making sure that we put in place a robust testing program during our games. Whatever I have said here will also apply equally to the precepts of the Olympic Council of Asia, whose medical committee I also share. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Jacob. I now give the floor to the Secretary General of the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and the Confederation of Sports, Mr. Inge Andersen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the President of WADA for the good preparation for this important conference. The Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sports strongly support the World Anti-Doping Code. The code is important to secure an athlete's right to participate in a clean sport and thus promote health, fairness, and equality for athletes worldwide. Norway is pleased that health aspects of the athletes are addressed in the new rules, as cheating and protection of the athletes' health are of equal importance. Norway also supports the reintroduction of the B-sample analysis. The athlete's right to ask for an analysis of the B-sample and the right to be present during the opening and analysis of it are of utmost importance to the athletes. We are also in favor of increasing the existing 2-year ineligibility period to 4 years for non-specified substances methods, providing there are no particular arguments and evidence brought forward that speak otherwise. Norway is pleased to see that the code is redrafted in a manner that secures a better legal protection for the athletes. However, these fundamental rights must be even better secured in the future by ensuring transparent processes, independence, and competent hearing bodies. The organizational structures in the field of anti-doping should reflect the principle of separation of powers, as this is crucial in order to guarantee a fair hearing and the protection of the legal rights of the athletes. IOC President Thomas Bach opened this conference with the following words: "It's all about athletes. It's all about clean athletes." Norway has a strong goal to take the lead in efforts to create fair competition based on honesty and a clean sport. Therefore, knowledge and attitudes about and efforts will be central during the Youth Olympic Games in Lillehammer in 2016. As early as the 10th and 11th December this year, in connection with the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, the Norwegian Olympic and the Paralympic Committee and Confederation of Sports will organize an international seminar titled Social Responsibility, Development and Peace Through Sports. Everyone is welcome to join the team that will win in the future. The team is called Clean Sport. It is under this flag that all our top athletes from around the world will compete under.
Thank you. Our next contributor is a member of the Anti-Doping Committee of the International Association for Sport for Para-Athletes with an Intellectual Disability, Mr. Masonso Matabula.
Thank you, Mr. President, ministers present here today, leaders in sport and all present. Ines is appreciative of the opportunity to address the conference. Athletes with an intellectual disability are categorized as having a significantly lower intellectual functioning IQ, that is 75 or below, and limited adaptive behavior, that is, the ability to reason, respond to the external environment, and to make informed decisions. Such athletes are particularly vulnerable within sport to the actions of their coaches and team managers. They are at a greater risk of unwittingly taking a banned substance, for example, at the insistence of their coach, to have limited understanding of the process, and are arguably therefore unable to give informed consent to sample collection, and will find it harder to understand the consequences of the results management process in the event of a positive sample. Due to the nature of their impairment, athletes with an intellectual disability will find it difficult to manage the requirements of out-of-competition testing and may find sample collection procedures much more stressful. Such athletes are increasingly subject to anti-doping tests, both in and out of competition, following the recent growth in elite sport opportunities and the reintroduction of the classification group into the Paralympic Games program. However, there has been little work undertaken to consider what issues the testing of vulnerable adults may present to doping officers and testing authorities. Given the additional vulnerabilities faced by such athletes, Ines would like to urge that consideration is given to applying the same modifications as are proposed for minors in Annexure C within the 2015 draft ISTI, namely that athletes with an intellectual disability are able to provide and be accompanied by a parent or advocate. This is for the protection of both the athletes and testing agency. Ines recommends that this should apply throughout the process of specimen collection and results management. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the President of the National Olympic Committee and Sports Confederation of Denmark, Mr. Niels Nygaard.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the organization that I preside over, the NOC and Sports Confederation of Denmark, has 1.9 million members. Only about 1 out of 1,000 of our members could be described as elite athletes. But all 1.9 million members are bound by our anti-doping regulations and thus by the World Anti-Doping Code. It goes without saying that for all those members who are children, sport for all athletes, or members who just practice fitness or exercise without ever participating in competitions, the World Anti-Doping Code is of limited direct importance. But it is important both for the NOC and for the Danish government that everybody involved in sport in Denmark are covered by the same anti-doping regulations. The basis for all anti-doping regulations is elite sport. Bearing in mind how very small the percentage of elite athletes is compared to the total number of people who do sports, it's in fact quite impressive and encouraging that the governments have undertaken to fund half of WADA's budget. But on the national level, sports organizations also depend on government funding of national anti-doping organizations and other anti-doping activities. And on a national level, it is not necessarily obvious to a government that it should spend a lot of money on carrying out doping control on a limited number of elite athletes. On the other hand, it could be very well argued that the use of steroids and other dangerous drugs by fitness and sport for all athletes is not a sports problem, as it does not give anybody an unfair advantage in competition, but rather a problem for the public health, and public health is a matter for the government. Therefore, several countries, including Denmark, have national anti-doping organizations which are funded in cooperation between the government and the sports organizations, with a dual aim of fighting doping in elite sport and promoting public health by carrying out doping tests in fitness and sports for all under the umbrella of the World Anti-Doping Code. For 35 years, since long before the creation of WADA, this system has worked very well in Denmark. But it is important that the World Anti-Doping Code acknowledge that doping control is not only a matter for elite sport, and that the dual aim of clean sport and public health is reflected in the wording of the code. In this respect, we appreciate the work done in the preparation of the code by the European governments and NATOs. And we believe that with the proposed wording of the definition of athletes in the new code, the NATO should be able to carry out their task in the fitness and sport for all sectors also in the future, while still being in compliance with the code. However, while I'm well aware that the World Anti-Doping Code is in many ways a compromise between different opinions, it's my hope that for future revisions of the code, WADA and its many stakeholders will pay greater attention to the fact that on the national level, the fight against doping is not only about elite sport, but also about public health, and that the code should reflect this to a higher degree than this is the fact today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nils. We'll now take a short break and watch a video which features the WADA Athlete Committee members, and it's entitled Win or Lose. Thank you.
Each time you lose is an opportunity to learn.
Of course, it hurts a lot to lose, but just don't throw the towel, just keep going hard.
Because if you keep thinking about what you did wrong, then you lose focus. So you gotta keep your idea, your goal in front.
I think the essence of what you would actually find with most Olympians is they fundamentally love the sport that they do.
I wanted to win, but I also love the game of it. We just do it because of the fun of the sport. Having fun in life cannot be a bad thing.
You're going to have to put in a lot of hard hours. You're going to have to dedicate yourself, because there's very few days of glory for many, many days of training. And so you have to enjoy it.
You need to enjoy what you're doing.
When you're at that time, you can go, what does it feel like to lose? And then you feel it, and you go, I'm still alive, you know, and I'm still Barbara, and I've still got amazing friends. I still live in an incredible country. I've still got an amazing life. Sure, you know, it's scary, but so what if I lose? And once you can understand that it's not so bad to lose, then you'll only win. So if you can get to a place where it doesn't matter if you win or lose, you're going to win.
Our next speaker is a member of the Medical Commission of the Turkish National Olympic Committee, Rısta Guna.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. On behalf of Anti-Doping Commission of Turkey, I would like to thank World Anti-Doping Agency and Sports and Recreation of South Africa for organizing this excellent conference. In the first half of this year, we had about 100 adverse analytical findings among track and field and weightlifting athletes in national testing program. It was very annoying having that amount of positive cases. But we received a lot of support from clean athletes and from their coaches. From the optimistic point of view, it's encouraging, because those cases prove that the system of doping control is working. It must be keeping in mind that this was done with independent NATO, with the close cooperation of Turkish Olympic Committee, code-compliant anti-doping regulations, increased investigations and intelligence work, collaboration with WADA and relevant international federations. We are pleased to observe that the new revised code and international standards are strengthening investigations and intelligence work and increasing the collaboration of anti-doping organizations. Doping is organized crime. Athlete who dopes, coach who helps, teammate who knows, club manager who supports, health professional who prescribes, federation administrator who forgives, pharmacist who sells are in this criminal organization. Unfortunately, rules and sanctions are inadequate in order to prevent doping in sports in all around the world. Frequently, the only sanctioned person is doped athlete and rarely his or her coach. We appreciate that the new revised code gives great opportunity in order to clarify the prohibited association of the athlete support personnel and give tougher sanctions to them. Finally, we would like to congratulate the drafting team of the code and international standards for their excellent hard work and all stakeholders who participated in this valuable revision process. And we would like to thank all participants of the World Conference on Doping in Sports. Anti-Doping Commission of Turkey looks forward to continue to good collaboration with WADA and with the other anti-doping organizations and participate in the implementation of the new revised code in order to protect clean athletes' rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is the Vice President of the International Gymnastics Federation and also President of the Medical Commission of that federation. And I thank him particularly for postponing his contribution yesterday when we were in difficulties with interpretation services and postponing it till today. But I welcome now Dr. Michel Leglis.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, sir. As everyone knows, learning very early on makes it easier to learn complex skills like music, languages, and dancing. Sports, as well, is a good example, like gymnastics. The period during which one is growing is ideal for learning for athletes, particularly in the neurological, physiological, physical, psychological, relational, and intellectual fields. It's necessary to instill a good understanding of morals and ethics with the sole aim of achieving the physical and psychological development of the child. This period is a time when young people are fragile physically and psychologically. Child or teenage athletes are vulnerable and they may be easy prey for all those surrounding them, their clubs, coaches, national organizations, sponsors, and even their own parents who identify themselves through the results of their children. Their whole life is organized around the quest for performance at all costs and at any cost, at the cost of their physical and mental health, their intellectual education, social lives, human relations, at the cost of depriving them of their childhood and adolescence, which should be the most beautiful periods of their lives. This may leave indelible traces during adulthood, like poor eating habits, lack of rest periods, various deficiencies and overloads, permanent submission to the coach's instructions and commands, humiliation, lack of leisure time, and disproportionate use of medical treatments such as anti-inflammatories or repeated injections into growing joints, with the sole aim of improving performance. All this, sir, is called doping, psychological, physical, chemical doping, which is just as harmful, even more harmful than doping with prohibited substances because it's more insidious and perverse, considering we're talking about young children who are powerless and have a restricted capacity to judge. The positive tests conducted in high-level gymnastics show that most products are diuretics, and they're always given by members of the athlete's entourage. I carefully read through the proposal of the new WADA code. I was happy to notice that the principle of the sole responsibility of the child athlete's principle had been reconsidered. Responsibility and accountability is extended to the people around those children. Even if this is a bit of an oversimplification, and of course it's not the everyday life of gymnasts and other sports people, the FIG fully concurs with WADA and wants to protect young athletes from mistreatment. FIG has organized age-based events and offers special training and education for coaches worldwide where moral and ethical responsibility is stressed. FIG has drawn up some proposals and a research program on this item. Sir, I would like to wind up by saying that this is not a lecture, but in fact a plea to protect young athletes, adolescents from doping. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. And for similar reasons, the technical difficulties yesterday, the next speaker agreed also to postpone. But I now welcome the Anti-Doping Commission member of the Dominican Republic National Olympic Committee, Victor Figueroa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Voy a hablar en español.
I shall be speaking in Spanish. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Dominican Olympic Committee, and Norseca, I would like first of all to thank the government of the sister republic of South Africa for organizing this very important event. Second, I would like to express our gratitude to WADA for giving us this opportunity to help to develop clean sports. The Dominican Olympic Committee and the Confederation fully agrees with the changes made in the code so far, and it congratulates WADA on the very transparent process. However, as nothing in life is perfect, we would like to express our concern about Article 11 of the Code, which deals with the consequences for team sports, and more specifically, paragraph 11.2, which deals with penalties and sanctions for teams when there are adverse analytical findings. The organizer of the event can lay down sanctions which affect the entire team. We think that this point should be studied more because we have always viewed doping as an individual and not a collective offense. Otherwise, in other words, it should be up to the organizers of the event to determine whether the team deserves to be sanctioned as a team. Our concern is based on three main points. As we all know, to get results in sports teams, various members have to compete at the same time, and they don't all bear the same responsibility. Second, a situation may arise where athletes have an adverse analytical result but did not contribute to the success of the team. That, in other words, that person may be a substitute. Third, we would be condemning the majority of the team, which may be clean, due to a fault committed just by one person or a minority. That may be a violation of the rights of the athletes who were clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next contribution will come from the chairman of the Medical Committee of the Sudan National Olympic Committee, Mr. Ahmed Awal Agamil.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants, it gives me great pleasure to be here today and to congratulate you on the sustained success of WADA in the fight against doping. The draft of the World Anti-Doping Code 2015 is the result of enormous efforts put forward by different concerned expertise in all areas. It is a real treasure and something that we must all be proud of. However, I would like to comment on 2 points of interest and are closely related. The first is a comment on Article 221, 222, and 25 in the definition of doping, use or attempted use by athletes of a prohibited substance or method. The fight against doping is intended particularly to assure athletes' welfare and to protect clean athletes Implementation and compliance, I assume, are as important as adoption. So we can comply with these articles through education, athletes outreach, and testing. I assume that in some areas around the world there is a limitation in resources allocated for anti-doping testing and educational programs. Looking at the limited number of accredited laboratories, for example, only one in Africa, and the high cost of the analysis of the samples adds up to hundreds of dollars, we can understand the difficulties of compliance in these articles. The second point I want to raise here today is the importance of the cooperation between anti-doping and forensic science. This, I believe, is inevitable due to existence of many similarities and shared areas. Forensic science and anti-doping are scientific disciplines utilizing scientific information to reach to justice. The scope may vary in some areas, but they share many similarities, in addition to access to justice, like the prohibited lists, the accredited laboratories, and scientific experts. They are very related, and collaboration will develop both and can start by cooperation with forensic toxicology and in the future with forensic DNA. Toxicology laboratories can be used for analysis of some substances as they are more available, so domestic urine analysis can be included as your routine part of the medical check of athletes in collaboration with national anti-doping organizations, like in some sectors that require drug-free certificates as part of their routine medical check for certification and licensing. Also, forensic science can assist in the education as part of the substance abuse programs. Mr. Chairman, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the government of Sudan and Sudan National Olympic Committee, I would like to thank and congratulate you all for the very organized conference where professionalism is very evident. Special thanks goes to Mr. Rodney Swigler, Rob, and Tom from WADA for their significant effort and highly appreciated valuable contribution in anti-doping in Africa. Distinguished participants, you are gathering here today at Johannesburg in this very welcoming country to put your hands and heads together is a turning point in the fight against doping. I ask you to agree with the principles, and plans can later put forward the strategies. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. I now invite the head of the medical affairs of the International Motorsport Federation, Ms. Sandra Kamago, to make an intervention.
In motor racing, you have to face specific risks, and this is why in-competition testing remains a key part of the FIA's anti-doping strategy. Indeed, this is not only about performance enhancement and ethics, it is also about health. For example, taking beta blockers could potentially represent a risk in case of an accident where there is an hemorrhage. And for the FIA, as I believe is the case for most motorized sports, anti-doping also has a lot to do with safety. Accidents happen in all sports. But in motor racing, the consequences can be particularly serious, not only for the athlete concerned, but also for the other athletes competing, the officials, and even the public. Even if this does not only concern doping substances, I would just like to draw your attention to the fact that we have all read on the warning notice of a drug we have taken that doing so could affect our reflexes or judgment, and that driving shortly after having taken that drug was therefore not recommended. So, if this is the case for normal driving, you can imagine what that would mean for racing. The FIA is therefore worried about the current trend to treat social and recreational drugs differently and less seriously than other prohibited substances, while they are highly dangerous in motorsport. There was even a debate as to whether or not alcohol should remain on the prohibited list as a substance prohibited in particular sports. Treating substances such as alcohol or cannabis less seriously, or worse, withdrawing them from the prohibited list is clearly unthinkable for us, as it would have a devastating effect by sending the wrong message to our athletes, our national federations, and the media. Even if the FIA decided to continue testing for alcohol within its own protocols, such a change to the prohibited list would be seen as indicating that the fight against drink driving is less important. Our actions in this field would be undermined, as well as the great efforts made by the FIA in its Action for Road Safety campaign. We are therefore relieved that the concept of substances of abuse has been withdrawn from the final draft of the code. But alcohol is not only a safety issue, and it is not only motorized sports that prohibit it. Archery and karate also prohibit the use of alcohol. No, alcohol, as well as other recreational drugs, is also about performance. It can potentially and temporarily enhance performance to a certain level by inhibiting the athlete's fear or stress, lowering the perception of risk, and encouraging increased risk taken. I would like to conclude with 2 points. First, by emphasizing the usefulness of the section of the prohibited list called Substances Prohibited in Particular Sports. We believe that this section should continue to exist in order to take into consideration the specificities of certain sports and, as a result, be as efficient as possible. And my second point is an open question. If alcohol can potentially enhance performance in motorsports by inhibiting stress and fear, don't you think that the same advantage could be found in most other sports? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is an Olympian and world medalist in skeleton from the United Kingdom, a member of our foundation board and the vice chair of the International Olympic Committee Athlete Commission. Thank you, Adam Pengilly.
Thank you, President. So why are we here? Ladies and gentlemen, I make no apology for repeating what various other people around the room have already said, beginning with the IOC President. We are here to protect clean athletes. As you've just heard, my name's Adam Pengilly. I'm a skeleton athlete, or at least was until I retired last year. You know, when you stand on the start line, having trained and sacrificed for much of your life in pursuit of a dream, all you ask for is a fair chance. And when I was competing, through various conversations, it became abundantly clear that there was significant variation in anti-doping programs with my competitors and the scrutiny that they were under. And aside from being very frustrating, this is part of how those dreams get stolen. This harmonization, or lack of it, has been discussed for a long time, but unfortunately progress remains slow. And I feel obliged to point a finger at those nations who some time ago signed the UNESCO Convention and yet still have inadequate legislation. This should be publicly disclosed, in my view. As for signatories, the current standards for the code compliance are currently too low, and with self-assessment, it's actually quite difficult to fail. Athletes have very high standards when it comes to anti-doping, and it's not unreasonable to expect the same from all stakeholders. As a movement, I believe we should also change our rhetoric when cheats are caught. There are cheats in sport, there always will be, just as in every walk of life. But on a day when sport becomes a tiny bit cleaner having caught someone, it's not a sad day. This message must be a positive one. I did, however, hear a sad story this week about a young athlete from a small nation who had never had any anti-doping education. Unfortunately, not an uncommon situation. She tested positive for a diuretic at a recent games, and it was given to her in a substance by another athlete, and consequently she was sent home. Now, it's fantastic that more priority is being placed on education in the new code, but when I ask various stakeholders and experts, who's responsible for anti-doping education? I always get a different response. Now, if we're serious about education, having this lack of clarity about its delivery is just not acceptable. Responsibilities should be identified, part of which are with athletes, but all involved must be held to account. Finally, I have to say, great progress has been made in this fight, and myself and all athletes are deeply appreciative for all those that have worked hard for this over the years. But friends, we still have some distance to go. So let's commit to the effective implementation of this improved code. Let's put unhelpful interests aside, and let's protect those clean athletes now and in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And our final contribution before our break, our mid-morning break, comes from a member of the Canadian National Olympic Committee, Mr. Bob McCormick. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Canadian Olympic Committee, I would like to commend the World Anti-Doping Agency for its leadership through the code consultation process. We also wish to congratulate WADA on the final version, which we believe represents a significant enhancement in our ability to fight against doping. With this intervention, we wish to make the following points. As mentioned by several speakers, one of the principles of WADA is to have a harmonized set of rules and that for all athletes and sporting organizations in all jurisdictions. Having one set of rules is essential to ensure fair and level playing field for all athletes in all sports in all countries. However, this is only effective if all stakeholders implement the rules uniformly. It is critical that all anti-doping organizations clearly demonstrate they are running credible anti-doping programs, and we believe WADA must have the power to more effectively impose sanctions on those organizations unwilling to fully comply. This would represent a significant positive step forward. We applaud the new provisions to enhance anti-doping education and agree this is a key component of the battle. However, to be maximally effective, we need good role modeling, and we believe the best role models for our youth are elite athletes. For many youth, their sport role models are the professional stars. Unfortunately, many high professional sports, particularly in North America, do not have effective anti-doping programs. We would support more aggressive efforts to move the major professional sports in North America to adopt the WADA code, particularly for the Olympic sports like ice hockey and basketball. The shortcomings of the professional anti-doping programs represent a real challenge for a National Olympic Committee. For our final point, we'd like to again congratulate WADA for improving the code and for the benefit of all athletes. We welcome the improved coordination of drug testing at major games, as this addresses a recurring frustration. We also appreciate the provisions for better recognition of therapeutic use exemptions that are issued by national anti-doping organizations. In closing, we look forward to continuing cooperative relationship with WADA and commit to working with you to promote fair competition and to support the Play True and Say No to Doping programs. We'd also like to state that the Canadian Olympic Committee fully supports the Canadian Centre for Ethics in Sports intervention at this conference. We thank you for the opportunity to present and declare the Canadian Olympic Committee's endorsement of the 2015 World Anti-Doping Code and the accompanying international standards. Thank you.